get to those impacted probationary employees. According to the news report that I'm about to put up on the screen, it's like 200,000 people. They're not all reduced in force yet, but there's a lot of worry among them. So let's get to this story first, and then we'll talk about it.
For thousands of federal workers,
frustrated and confused.
The memory of their firing,
I was absolutely devastated,
is still fresh.
We were leaving work fully employed and coming back the next morning without a job.
The terminations, part of a wave of cutbacks, mainly hitting probationary employees, those who have either been hired or promoted in the last 1 to 2 years.
I really don't even feel like I got a chance to even prove my worth to the team.
And while the Trump administration hasn't shared the total number of firings, as of August, more than 200,000 federal workers had been in their jobs less than a year.
I was one of the thousands of federal workers terminated this weekend.
24-year-old Victoria Chega worked in Medicare and Medicaid services.
I was only in my role for about 6 weeks. I hadn't even received a performance review yet. So it was just really disheartening to see performance issues cited as the reasons. And at this point, I know that's not a reflection of my performance or capabilities. That's what thousands of other people received as well. But it was really a sad moment.
How has this affected your day-to-day life? What does this mean for rent, for food?
I'm really concerned about getting rid of my health insurance, no longer having that. I'm only 24, so I can potentially still get it back on my parents' insurance.
I was only here a month. My first day was in January, so obviously I had to quit all my little part-time gigs, and now I have to rush back to those part-time gigs just to try and put a few dollars in my pocket.
Okay, a lot to unpack there, and it's really sad. These are really highly motivated, energized people who, they connected up with a government job. They have benefits suddenly. They don't have to be on mom and dad's health insurance anymore. And now suddenly, like that young man, he's got to re-engage with all those side hustles that he had to cover rent and out-of-pocket expenses. For certain people in the federal workplace, there's that emotional element, whether they've been there a short period of time or they are veterans. Federal work for many has been insular or insulated, if you will, from the things that happen in the private sector, like acquisitions and downsizings typically. So for this cohort, Mika, it appears to me that they may be emotionally unprepared for what's hit them suddenly. So how do we get them to step back and get their land legs, if you will, and focus on the here and now and the first 3 steps to action?
Yeah, really good question. And my heart goes out to each and every one who has been affected by that. And as a mom of Gen Z kids myself, or young adults myself, navigating the job market too, I just really do empathize with this experience. I think first and foremost, I want to address one area that you just mentioned, and that is, this perception of like a cushy government job, that meaning it is stable. It comes with longevity. It often doesn't have to be faced with uncertainty like layoffs in private industry. But I would venture to say that these young early careerists, Dan, joined public sector U.S. federal government jobs, not for that reason, because often this generation looks for something different within 12 to 24 months anyway. I venture to say they came because of an alignment to that social impact. The curiosity that they may have to make a difference for their nation and to serve in this really honorable capacity, unfortunately, that has not been messaged well in the media in the past many years, actually. So to your question about, where to start, I think first is to really be okay with feeling the feels. If I could just be honest with that piece of it. I mean, I think it's okay to stay grounded in like feeling grief and sorrow and fear of the uncertain and what's next, but not let it paralyze you and stop from taking those next steps. So for those that maybe, like we heard on the interview, that might have only been in their jobs for a month or 6 weeks or a few days even, thinking about if they could maybe design a letter of recommendation, make it easy, draft one yourself and ask your current supervisor or whoever was your current supervisor if they would feel comfortable writing a letter of recommendation and being a reference for you as you navigate next steps in terms of why you were selected. Perhaps you were selected out of 700 applicants in a new hire. Those things stand out. So consider how you might be able to tap into your coworkers, your supervisor who you did work for in the federal government to help leverage and launch your next steps. And then, I do like the fact that I heard a lot about resiliency, even in that, in terms of going back to the side hustle. So there's, the gig economy is real, and there are opportunities at least to get on your feet while you're searching for something more stable, more values aligned, and something that has some longevity, good benefits, and those sorts of things. And so, I'm thinking of as that person mentioned about, the side gigs and the side hustles of, they could be doing other little pieces of work while they're searching for a more meaningful long-term outcome in terms of employment. And then there's some great resources right now that are available. I'll mention one and maybe a few others, but in terms of matching former feds with state and local government opportunities.
Okay.
So at this moment, there could be some real wonderful opportunities for you to bring your skills, your appetite and desire for serving into local communities, maybe not even in the one that you're living and working in now, but around the country. So there's a resource called Civic Match, which is a wonderful resource, used to be for political appointees who were transitioning out of their political roles, moving into other kinds of service-oriented positions. And now they've opened up the aperture to former feds who are looking to make a match with state, local, city government positions. And I'm also seeing a number of resources in areas like Virginia, Maryland, DC, throw a lot of resources to trying to recruit former feds into their state, local, city government roles.